If I just walked up and handed you $10,000 in cash right now to go out and share your faith with 10 total strangers, you would probably, sprint out the door.
Oh, absolutely. I
Right.
mean, most people would be halfway down the block before you even finish the sentence.
Right. But then if you take away the money, suddenly doing that exact same thing out of pure unrewarded devotion feels incredibly difficult.
It really does. It suddenly feels like a chore.
Yeah, and welcome to a new deep dive. Today you are exploring this really fascinating sermon by Pastor Sung No at Praise Presbyterian Church.
Yes, and he's focusing on 1 Corinthians 15, which is often called the resurrection chapter.
Exactly. But this isn't just some dry theological history lesson, right? You're getting a profound look into what psychological and spiritual fuel actually drives human behavior.
Right, because that gap between sprinting out the door for cash and dragging your feet when it's just devotion, well, that really comes down to motivation.
And Pastor No has a really funny analogy for this early on. A kid asks how a car works, right? And the mom just says, oh, the wheels go round and round.
Well, the dad gives this incredibly dense technical lecture on combustion engines.
Yeah, exactly. And the point is, we easily see the wheels turning in our outward behavior, but we rarely, look under the hood to see what kind of engine is actually pushing us.
Which brings us to the two types of engines Pastor No talks about. He compares external motivation. So things like legalism, fear, duty, comparing yourself to others, to internal motivation.
Which would be the gospel and grace.
Exactly. I mean, legalism is essentially just a draining battery. You operate under this constant, exhausting anxiety of, well, I have to do this or I'll be punished.
Or even just, I have to do this so people think I'm a good person. It's just an exhausting way to live.
It really is. But if you look under the hood of someone running on grace, you find a limitless internal engine. Your fuel source fundamentally changes.
Okay, so let's look at the mechanics of that fuel source. The sermon points to the resurrection as the core of this grace.
Yeah, the idea is that the cross pays the debt and the resurrection is God's ultimate receipt.
God's receipt, I like that. But, looking at the source material, there's a list of witnesses to this resurrection.
Right, Peter, James, a group of 500, and Paul.
Yeah, and to me, that strikes me as just a terrible PR strategy.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, if I'm trying to launch a massive religious movement, I want my key witnesses to be flawless, right? Like morally upright saints.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I don't want a roster of cowards who just denied their leader, or in Paul's case, a literal violent persecutor of the church. Why highlight these absolute messes?
Well, Pastor No actually brings up two brilliant reasons for that. First, there's the historical honesty aspect.
Because nobody would invent that, right?
Exactly. If you were inventing a religion in the first century, you definitely wouldn't purposefully make your leaders look like unstable enemies of the state.
Good point.
But the deeper psychological mechanism here is about the nature of grace itself. Because if Jesus only appeared to perfect people, well, it wouldn't be grace.
It would just be a reward for good behavior.
Right. Highlighting their failures proves that true grace actually has to meet us in our deepest shame, not our triumphs.
Wow. That completely flips the paradigm. I mean, it means the fuel source isn't based on your own track record at all.
Exactly. And that explains why the Apostle Paul could later say, by the grace of God, I am what I am.
Because he was fully aware of his dark history, but he didn't let it paralyze him.
Right. That specific type of grace completely rewrites your reality. Pastor No argues it basically reframes three core areas of your life.
The past, the present, and the future.
Yeah.
Let's dig into how that actually works, maybe starting with the past. Because I always struggle with the idea that grace just magically erases mistakes.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, the harm Paul caused to people was very real.
Right. People actually suffered.
Exactly. Grace doesn't erase the harm. What it actually does is sever the link between your past failures and your core identity.
So your worst moments no longer have the power to define who you are.
Precisely. That is the huge psychological shift.
Which naturally changes your present, right? If I'm not carrying the crushing weight of my past, my daily obligations just look totally different.
They do. The sermon claims grace turns empty obligations into joyful service.
But how does it actually achieve that on a Tuesday morning,
Well, think back to the draining battery. If you are terrified of judgment, literally every mundane task is heavy.
Because you're constantly trying to prove yourself.
Right. But if the resurrection guarantees that you are already accepted, all that pressure just evaporates.
Oh, I get it. You start serving people out of overwhelming gratitude rather than just a desperate need to prove your worth.
Exactly. And that brings us to the future. Pastor No argues this mindset defeats both reckless hedonism and crushing nihilism.
Reckless hedonism being the whole, nothing matters, so let's just party vibe.
Yes, exactly.
But why does grace shatter that nothing matters mindset?
Because if the resurrection is an actual historical reality, well, it means the material world isn't all there is.
It means there's more.
Right. It means every small, mundane action you take today actually ripples into eternity.
Which injects profound weight and, eternal meaning into your life right now.
It does. It changes everything.
So your spiritual life isn't this forced march driven by guilt anymore. It becomes a joyful journey propelled by the reality of the resurrection.
Beautifully said.
So look under the hood today. Take an audit of your own internal battery. Are the wheels of your life turning because you're running on the exhausting fumes of fear and comparison? Or are you truly powered by the quiet, unbreakable engine of grace?
Honestly, that is the most important diagnostic check you can run.
Yeah, and here's a final thought to chew on as we wrap up. If grace truly rewrites your past, present, and future, what happens to the concept of regret?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. Is holding on to regret just another form of legalism trying to sneak its way back into your engine? Something to think about?